setting new standards in podcast excellence. You have joined the WBT, fully focused on business and taxes. Here is your host, Michael Lodge.
And welcome to the WBT. This is Michael Lodge. I am glad you are here with me. I like this time that we can spend together. Today our conversation is going to be about hearsay. I'll be right back.
This is brought to you by Lodge & Co., a business and tax advisory firm where your success is our goal. Call us today toll-free at 888-681-1518. Or visit us at www.lodge-co.com and learn more about what we can do for you. Lodge & Co., your source for sound business and tax services.
So today we're going into more testimony on the impeachment. The U.S. ambassador, former U.S. ambassador to the Ukraine is going before Congress today. Now, she's a tearful person, so she's going to well up with tears and feel all sorry for herself because she was fired. But I'm going to tell you something, that in the real world, when your boss does not like something that you're doing, or he sees that you're failing in your job, he can fire you, he can remove you, or send you someplace else where maybe your talents can be used. So she's upset because she's a career diplomat, and she feels that she's been hit by the President of the United States, and she's going to tear up and she's going to feel sorry for herself. But don't buy it. Do not go anywhere with that thought. For a long time before, she's a holdover from the Obama administration. She was hired by Obama. Obama had a different set of foreign policy. And all of these individuals who were held over felt that they were still going by that old foreign policy. But they had a new boss, and that was President Trump. He came in, he wanted a different set of foreign policy guidelines and rules and direction, but she didn't want it. So she started bad-mouthing the president. This happened a long time ago, over 3 years ago, when she started doing this. So, as an employer, why would you keep somebody on board if they're not going to go along with your foreign policy? Remember, President Trump's the boss, not the ambassador. The ambassador is not setting foreign policy. It's the president through the State Department, down to the ambassador. She's way down there, in many levels. She doesn't make decisions. It is the president who makes a decision on how to deal with Ukraine in this instance. So you're going to hear this testimony. You're going to hear all these Democrats pouring over her and soothing her and everything. Just let her cry. I'm telling you, Americans, just let her cry. Let her get it out. But the fact still remains that she didn't do her job. Fact still remains that the president is her boss. Fact still remains that the president sets foreign policy, not the ambassador. Keep that in the back of your mind. Now, I wanted to talk about hearsay. We had a U.S. Congressman in Wednesday's testimony. Hearing, So make the statement saying that hearsay is more important than any other evidence. That's a very dangerous thing. We also heard the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, say that President Trump is guilty until proven innocent. He has to prove his innocence. But right now he's guilty. And back 3 years ago when he became president, he was already guilty and they were already going to impeach him. So they already have this history of trying to take down a president. Let's talk about hearsay. I want you to really, today or tomorrow or tonight, or whenever you're listening to this, I want you to go to Google and I want you to bring up the Constitution of the United States. And I want you to look at the Fourth Amendment. I want you to look at the Fifth Amendment. I want you to look at the Sixth Amendment. And I want you to look at the Seventh Amendment. Now, the Fourth Amendment protects individuals from unreasonable search and seizure. The Fourth Amendment in the American Constitution also requires law enforcement agencies to obtain a warrant or possess unreasonable doubt before entering an individual's private property. That's the beginning of protecting us from in our legal rights. Okay? We are innocent until proven guilty. So they've already made it. They've already put this number 4 in there to control the police in the manner in which they can gather information on us and documents and enter into our homes or businesses. The Fifth Amendment offers an individual the right to indictment by a grand jury, protects an individual from double jeopardy, self-incrimination, and the taking of private property without just compensation. So it protects us, again, as American citizens. So we have the Fourth and the Fifth protecting us. Then we have the Sixth Amendment. The amendment is present in all trials or court cases in America. The Sixth Amendment in the American Constitution guarantees an individual the right to a fair, speedy, and public trial. The Sixth Amendment also enables an individual to have legal assistance regardless of the charge, and the right to confront adverse witnesses and notice of accusations. Very important there. The right to confront adverse witnesses and notice of accusations. These rights are given to the men and women under fair trial for any sort of wrongdoing. They establish the innocent until proven guilty mantra that is present in the United States legal system. Number 6, remember that while you're listening to the Democrats in this hearing, or if you want to call this public trial. They have not followed the Constitution because they have turned it around and said that the president is guilty. That the president is guilty automatically. And they've given him no right to face his accusers. None whatsoever. So we have individuals up there that are witnesses that are relaying what they heard from another person who heard something else. This is hearsay. These are individuals that have not actually witnessed anything, but they've heard. Or somebody has told them, but somebody else has told them. Or they heard somebody's voice on a telephone call, but they weren't really on the telephone call. They were listening from someplace in the room. Hearsay is not evidence. And for that congressman to say that, he has now just attacked the Sixth Amendment of the Constitution. Because it is neither fair for hearsay to be presented, and the president cannot even cross-examine or interview or take a deposition from his accusers. In these hearings, we see no one there from the White House legal counsel. We don't see his personal attorney there to represent him. So I've asked you this before. Take your Democratic hat off. Take your Republican hat off. And look at this as a pure legal issue, where they're trying to take down a president based on hearsay. It would never be allowed in court, because there's no evidence. If you don't have actual evidence of an individual who was actually there, who was in the meeting, who said this and that, and he was talking to the president and listening to the president, that is first-hand evidence, first-hand witness. But when you have other people saying, well, I heard this, I heard that, you know what? In the human nature, what we hear sometimes isn't remembered exactly the way that we heard it. Or we interpret things to different meanings. Or we have our opinion, and our opinion gets mixed up with what we think we heard. That's why hearsay is not and should not be allowed in any type of hearing like this or in a legal court system, because it's not accurate enough. So let's read that once again. These rights are given to all men and women under trial, or for any sort of wrongdoing. They establish the innocent until proven guilty, which is present in the United States legal system. Now, we look at what's being said, and right now they have used several different words, right, to describe what President Trump has done. But they've changed over time. Now we're into the section of, or the word of bribery. But they have not proven any bribery. He never got anything back in return. He never offered anything. The president has every right to hold back money to make sure that countries meet certain conditions. He has that right to do it. In fact, many of these funds that are given to countries have conditions tied to it. And the president has the right to question or to add another condition to it, so that the money is going to be trusted into the right hands to be used for the right purposes. I'm going to tell you this right now. Over the course of our nation's history, we have given a lot of money away to bad countries. I want you to go back into history with me and what happened with Marcos of Philippines. We had given him millions and millions and millions of dollars. And a lot of that money, the majority of it, went into his pockets, into his cronies' pockets. He was overthrown by his own people. It had become so disgusting that the misuse of American taxpayer money to the Philippines was mismanaged and stolen, basically stolen by the politicians of the Philippines. Even to this day, the money that is received by foreign governments has to have conditions on it. Even to this day, the Philippines receives millions of dollars from the United States. And the question about the Philippines, even to this day, is the corruption in their government and the misusage of money. Even the World Bank, at one point in time, I remember because I was there in the Philippines working, and the World Bank held back funds because they wanted to show proof that corruption issues had been addressed. So it's done consistently. And I don't know why we're sending so much foreign aid to the Philippines anymore. I am tired as a taxpayer having our money sent to foreign governments and it's being misused. Money that is supposed to go down to the people and help the poor and the people who are living on the streets and under bridges and who are begging for food, and those individuals who are dropping off their children, their little tiny babies, at Catholic churches and then just leaving them. That's what our money was supposed to have been used for, and also for military use also. But it's not being used that way. We give, as a nation, we give so much American tax dollars to these foreign governments, and we're not making them comply with the conditions that we set forth in our giving of those funds. So I can understand why the president was very concerned about the illegalities of the use of funds in Ukraine. And the corruption that had been seen for so long, and was also in the testimony on Wednesday by Kent, who said that the country has a huge problem with corruption. Especially in that energy company that Biden's son was involved in. And that Vice President Biden was trying to get the prosecutor off their case and threatened to have them fired. Otherwise, they were not going to get their funds. Now that is quid pro quo. But no one wants to talk about that issue. No, they don't want to talk about that. They don't want to address that there were illegalities in the Obama administration that should have been addressed and should have been taken care of. But we as Americans, we have the Constitution right now in these Democratic hearings of impeachment, where the Constitution is being attacked with every question that the Democrats are asking. So, now that we have our hats off, we're no longer, you and I, we're no longer Democrat, we're no longer Republican, we're no longer independent. We are Americans. And if we do not get the Constitution more protected, so that there is a due process and that there is this ideal and this driven point within our legal system that we are innocent until proven guilty, if we adopt the Democratic way of saying, no, you're guilty, you are guilty up front, then we have a Constitution that is being attacked, and your rights, my rights, they're gone away with. We no longer have any constitutional rights. Because right now what we're seeing in the hearings is the Constitution has been withdrawn and been replaced with political law, not constitutional law. And that's where we have a problem. I don't think that any of us ever want to go to court with the idea or the thought process in our head, knowing that we are automatically guilty and we have no one to help us. We have no laws to protect us. We have no way to a speedy and fair trial. If we are unprotected, and if we do not have the Constitution on our side to protect our legal rights, then we are in deep a pile of nonsense. So I want you to listen very closely to these hearings. And in the back of your mind, I want you to have your Constitution out. And with every question, I want you to refer back to the Constitution. If it is hearsay evidence, disregard it. If it is slander through a question, disregard it. If the question has a constitutionality about it, listen to it. If it has hearsay, any sort of hearsay, disregard it, disregard it, disregard it. I want you to very carefully today print out the Sixth Amendment, the Fourth Amendment, the Fifth Amendment, the Sixth Amendment, and the Seventh Amendment, and the Eighth Amendment. Those amendments have to do with our legal rights. You judge these hearings based upon what the Constitution says. If it strays from the Constitution, disregard it. And I have a sneaking feeling that what you're going to find out is that the way that the Democrats have presented their case is not constitutional. It has strayed from the Constitution. Even if you run that clip of Speaker Pelosi saying that he's guilty in the press conference, she said he's guilty. And she has not even heard all the facts. She has not heard all the questions. She has not heard all the witnesses. She hasn't seen the transcripts. She has not seen anything. But yet she's calling him guilty. And there are so many that are stating that without listening to the facts or following the Constitution. And listen, if you are a Democratic congressperson, you had better get back to reality of where the government stands on the Constitution. That's why we have a Department of Justice that protects the Constitution. That's why we have a Constitution to protect you and I. Very carefully listen to what's going on. Don't be swayed by the tears, because that's just an emotional thing of a person getting fired because she did not do her job. And there's history to prove that. Don't be swayed by the praising of an individual who got fired by the president because they didn't do their job. Don't be swayed by members of Congress who are going to build up a story on an individual who was actually fired from her job for not doing it right. Do not listen to the hearsay evidence of anything, of any of these witnesses, if it does not go along with the Constitution of the United States. Remember, in the court of law, hearsay, just minor portions of hearsay is acceptable, but it has to meet certain criteria. But the majority of the time in courts, hearsay is not acceptable testimony and is thrown out by the courts. And any judge who allows it is doing harm to anybody's legal rights. Just as the Democrats in Congress at the moment who are trying to push this impeachment is trying to do damage to the Constitution of the United States and are pushing their own political rules and doing damage and attacking the Constitution of the United States. I believe in our Constitution. I love our Constitution. Other countries have copied our Constitution. The Philippines even has copied our Constitution. If you read their Constitution, it's very close to what our Constitution says. The Constitution was framed by a group of individuals who wanted, let me state this, it was formed by a group of individuals who had lived through the tyranny of a king and of a church and was overtaxed. So they built our Constitution to protect the American people so that we would never get to that point again. So anybody who tries to tear down the Constitution, set there for you and I to be protected, we have to very carefully make sure that that individual no longer represents us in the Congress. Quigley, who said that hearsay evidence is more important than any other kind of evidence, is a fool. Because he went against the Constitution and he's willing to take what other people have heard as evidence. I mean, if I was in court and somebody said, well, I heard this from John and John heard it from Tom, and if the judge said, well, that's good enough evidence after hearsay, and it was all lies, and if I'm going to be judged on lies from hearsay, then my constitutional rights have been ignored. They've been pounced on, they've been stepped on, they've been kicked to the side. So today, I request all of you print out the Constitution. Study the portion of the Constitution that protects us legally. And then ask the questions of the members of Congress who are trying to push this impeachment through hearsay evidence and just making up words as they go along. And creating words that sound like they're illegal. We need to put those to the side and listen to what the Constitution says about the rights of any individual who is accused and the right to be able to question that accuser. That's not being done at the moment. So everybody, if you have any questions or comments, send me a text at 818-252-5682. Again, that's 818-252-5682. Send me a text or a question and I'll be more than happy to answer it. But everybody, really pay attention. Really focus on what the Constitution says. Have it to the side of you. Refer to it as these individuals ask questions that are unconstitutional and make sure that the Constitution is being followed. That is the basis of our freedom. That is the basis of our liberties and the basis of our legal rights in this great United States. I'll talk with you soon.
Thank you for listening to the WBT with Michael Lodge. Join us again tomorrow as we explore more about business and taxes. Follow us on iHeartRadio and go to our podcast website at www.wbtpod.com and listen to all of our podcasts and read our blogs.
This podcast is produced by Michael Lodge, fully focused on content.